Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. She dropped her champagne flute when she saw me. The sound of it shattering on the marble floor didn't even register for her. She just stood there, frozen, while the entire room turned to watch her unravel. Her hands trembled, and then the tears came, completely uninvited. Funny, isn't it? 3 years ago, I was the one sobbing into my suitcase while she told me I was too sensitive to survive the real world. But now, she was the one coming undone, in heels, in front of her colleagues, at a luxury work event I wasn't even supposed to attend. This isn't a revenge story. I didn't plan any of it. I didn't even know she'd be there. But I saw her before she saw me. And in that moment, before her eyes landed on mine, I watched her laugh at someone's joke like she hadn't shattered my entire identity 3 years ago on a random Tuesday night. She used to love Tuesdays. Said they felt like the underdog of the week. I don't know why I still remember that. Her name is Callie. We were married. Once. I won't waste your time telling you we were perfect. We weren't. But I loved her like a fool. I loved her through every red flag I folded into origami just to keep the peace. Through the work calls that came too late. The texts she hid. The perfume she wore when she claimed she was just meeting a friend. The night it all came crashing down, she walked into our apartment and didn't notice I was sitting in the dark. I had already seen the messages, the ones she forgot to delete. Messages that weren't just about cheating. They were about replacing me. You're not him. You'll never be him, she'd written to her lover. He's comfortable. That's all. That word, comfortable, still makes my skin itch. She didn't cry when I told her I knew. She didn't beg me to stay. She just looked relieved. And that, somehow, was worse than if she'd screamed. I left with a single bag and a bruised soul that didn't stop aching for months. I didn't fight her in court. Didn't even tell my family. I became a shadow, a ghost who paid his bills, smiled at cashiers, and never trusted anyone again. Until last night. I was invited to that work event by a colleague who begged me to fill in. I didn't want to go, but something, I don't know what, made me say yes. Maybe curiosity. Maybe I wanted to feel normal. And then, like a storm ripping through a silent town, there she was. Callie. Same confident stride. Same flawless makeup. But her eyes? When they met mine, they crumbled. The entire mask she'd perfected slipped off in 1 second. She mouthed my name, but no sound came out. I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I just watched her lose control, the way I had once, silently and in public. And that's when I knew. She hadn't moved on. She just got really, really good at pretending. The moment her eyes met mine, it was as if time folded in on itself. Her hand fluttered to her mouth, like she was physically trying to keep the past from pouring out. And still, she took a step toward me. A small one, hesitant, almost fragile. But it was enough to make half the room pause their conversations and turn. I stood still, my back straight, my hands cold, feeling every ounce of oxygen shift toward the uncomfortable gravity now growing between us. Lowell, she whispered, like saying my name might reverse everything she'd broken. I hadn't heard her voice in 3 years, and yet it dropped into my chest like a knife that already knew where the scars lived. She looked different, but not in the ways people usually change. It wasn't her hair or the dress or even the age around her eyes. It was the absence of that smug certainty she always wore like perfume. The version of her in front of me looked haunted, fragile, almost human. Callie. I said her name, calmly, flatly, not to rekindle anything, but to remind her that I wasn't a ghost. I was real. I survived her. The people near us started whispering. She didn't notice. Her hands trembled slightly, and I realized she was trying to decide whether to hug me. Part of me expected it, her old habit of reaching out to smooth things over with touch instead of truth. But I didn't move, and that hesitation hit her like a slap. I didn't know you'd be here, she stammered. I thought I'd vanish forever? I asked, not bitter, just curious. That I'd keep pretending I didn't exist because it was easier for you? She flinched, just barely. But I caught it. I didn't think you'd want to see me, she said quietly, her voice cracking. Not after what happened. I wouldn't want to see me either. I wanted to ask her what exactly she thought happened. Like it was a fire that accidentally caught instead of a match she struck deliberately. Instead, I turned slightly, just enough to show her I had no intention of staying in that moment longer than necessary. It's been 3 years, Callie. That's longer than our entire marriage lasted if you take out the months you spent loving someone else. That landed. Her face collapsed in on itself. Eyes glassy, lips parted, searching for something to say that would undo it all. She took another step toward me, but this time I stepped back. And then she broke. Full tears. No control. No audience awareness. Just sobbing. The kind I used to do quietly in my car, gripping the wheel until my knuckles went white. But unlike me, she didn't hide it. And that shocked me more than anything. A woman nearby tried to console her. Someone else offered a tissue. But Callie pushed them away and kept her eyes locked on me like I was the only person who could forgive her into existing again. "I'm sorry," she said through a choked sob. "I was selfish. I was scared. I thought I wanted something else, but I was wrong." Those words, years too late, bounced off the new version of me like raindrops off armor. And maybe that's what hurt her most. Not my silence, but the realization that I wasn't hers to hurt anymore. I gave her a polite nod, turned, and walked toward the exit. I didn't say anything poetic. I didn't look back. But I'll admit it, my hands were shaking. I made it as far as the coat check before I heard her heels echo behind me. She was calling my name, softly at first, like she was testing if I'd let her back into the world I'd locked her out of. I didn't stop. I kept walking past the velvet ropes, through the glass doors, into the parking lot lit by the glow of rain-slicked streetlights. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd give up. But she didn't. "Lowell. Wait. Please," she gasped, her voice catching as she pushed through the rotating doors. Her hair was already damp from the misty drizzle. I turned just enough to see the desperate confusion in her eyes. She wasn't used to chasing. Not me. Not anyone. "What do you want, Callie?" I asked, and I meant it. I genuinely didn't know what she expected to gain from reopening this wound. Closure? Forgiveness? A scene? She looked at me like a child realizing they've lost their favorite toy, not because it was taken, but because they threw it away. "I didn't know you'd be here," she repeated. "But when I saw you, I had to say something. I've thought about this moment 1,000 times. What I'd say if I ever saw you again. But now that you're standing here, now that I'm standing here, I cut in. You're remembering I'm a person? Not just the safe option you left behind when something shinier came along." She winced. The rain wasn't heavy, but it painted both of us in a sheen of memory and discomfort. Cars rolled by, unaware they were passing through the fallout of a love that had already gone extinct. "You were never the safe option," she said quietly. "You were the only real thing in my life. That's what scared me." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. "So you cheated on me because I was real?" "I cheated because I thought I wanted more. I thought I was meant for something bigger, someone who could match the life I pictured." "And Evan?" I said his name like it tasted bitter. "Was he the match?" She looked down. Her silence said everything. "I was fired 2 months after you left," she said finally. "He replaced me with a new assistant before the ink dried on the divorce." I didn't say a word. I wanted to. I wanted to say all the things I rehearsed in my head during sleepless nights, the monologues where I destroyed her with grace or shattered her with truth. But standing there, wet and exhausted and years older than when she last saw me, I realized something else. She wasn't chasing me out of guilt. She was chasing me because for the first time in her life, she had no one left to perform for. "I got a therapist," she said, as if that would fix it. "I've been trying to fix myself. I don't even know who I was back then." "Neither do I," I replied. "But I know who I became because of you." And that's when she said it. The thing I never thought I'd hear. "I still love you." I stood there, in the middle of that parking lot, blinking at the woman who once gutted me without flinching. And I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel hope. I just felt empty. "You don't love me," I said slowly. "You love the idea that I might still love you." She opened her mouth to argue, but I walked away before she could. And this time, she didn't follow. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the buzz of my cheap air conditioner, and wondering what kind of person you have to become to cry in a parking lot for the man you once told, "You'll be fine without me." Maybe she thought I'd crumble again. Maybe she thought she still had some kind of pull. But I wasn't the man she left behind. And if I was being honest, I didn't even know if I liked the man I'd become since then. By morning, I convinced myself the drama was over. She cried. I said my piece. We parted. End of story. But when I opened my laptop and saw the subject line in my inbox, everything inside me clenched. "Read this or regret it, please." From Callie L. Sent. 4:38 a.m. I should have deleted it. I hovered over the trash icon, my cursor shaking slightly, but my ego got the better of me. I opened it. The message started cold, clinical almost. She outlined everything she'd realized since I left. She admitted to the affair in full detail, said it wasn't just Evan. That part stopped me cold. Not just Evan. There were others, she wrote. But none of them were about love. They were about fear, about control, about trying to feel powerful in places I felt small. I leaned back, numb. Her words didn't hit like a bomb. They hit like slow poison. Every line was coded in that same selfish logic she always used to make herself feel better about doing damage. But then came the twist. There's something you don't know, she wrote. Something I never told you. The night before you left, I found out I was pregnant. My breath caught. I reread the sentence 3 times before the meaning sunk in. Pregnant? With whose child? Mine? Evan's? Someone else's? My hands trembled, my heart pounding in my ears. I felt like someone had pulled a trapdoor beneath me. She continued. I didn't keep it. I wasn't in a place to be a mother. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to manipulate you into staying. But I think part of me didn't want you to see how far I'd fallen, how much I'd ruined. I stared at the screen, unable to move. It was a different kind of betrayal. Not just the cheating, not just the abandonment, but the erasure of something I never even knew existed. She made a life-changing decision without me, without a conversation, without even giving me a chance to process what that could have meant. And now, 3 years later, she decided I deserved to know? The rest of the email was a mess of apologies and half-baked reflections. She ended it with, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I've never stopped regretting it. All of it. I still see your face when I close my eyes. I slammed the laptop shut. This wasn't closure. This was control. One last attempt to pull me back into her orbit with shock and sadness disguised as truth. And yet, I couldn't stop wondering. What if she had told me back then? What kind of man would I be now? And just when I thought it was over, when I thought no more pieces of my past could be resurrected, I got a call from an unknown number. A male voice. Nervous. Shaky. Is this Lowell? I think we need to talk. It's about Callie. I didn't say anything right away. I just held the phone to my ear, stunned by the voice that came through. It wasn't Evan. I knew his voice, too slick, too rehearsed. This was someone else. Someone who sounded just as confused to be talking to me as I was to hear from him. Who is this? I finally asked, trying to keep my voice steady, even though my pulse was anything but. My name's Trent, he said quickly. I know this is weird. Believe me, I wouldn't be calling if it weren't important. But I think Callie's been lying to both of us. The silence stretched for a few seconds. She told me you were abusive, he added. My blood turned to ice. She told me you broke her, he continued, voice cautious. Said you manipulated her, that you tracked her phone, that you used to threaten to disappear when things didn't go your way. She made it sound like she escaped from a nightmare. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Not because any of it was true, but because I suddenly understood why she was able to walk away from our marriage with no guilt. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd rewritten the entire narrative of our relationship so she could live with herself. And you believed her? I asked, my voice tight. I did, he said. At first. But things didn't add up. She was secretive, always half crying over old pictures of you when she thought I wasn't looking. She'd tell stories that contradicted each other. And then she disappeared on me too. My throat was dry. When was this? Right after she left you, Trent said. We were together for 6 months. I thought it was serious. She even talked about moving in. And then one night, she said she needed space. And she never came back. Ghosted me completely. I rubbed my eyes, trying to process the speed at which this entire nightmare kept evolving. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. He hesitated. Because she contacted me last week. Out of nowhere. Said she saw you again. That it shook her. And then she started spinning stories about how maybe you two still had something real. It was weird. Like she needed me to validate her guilt. I sat down slowly, the weight of it all pushing down on me like cement. Then she sent me something. Trent added. Screenshots. Messages between you and her from years ago. But they were altered. Like, literally edited. She made it look like you were threatening her. Saying stuff I'm pretty sure no one would say sober. I closed my eyes, heart pounding. He continued. I tracked you down because I don't want to be part of whatever game she's playing. And I thought maybe you deserve to know. He paused, then added, "She's not just trying to get back with you. She's trying to erase what she did. And I don't know what she's capable of anymore." I didn't answer. I just sat there, stunned, staring at the wall like it could offer some kind of answer. Trent's voice softened. "I know this must be a lot. I just figured someone should tell you before she pulls you back in." I thanked him, hung up, and stared at the floor for what felt like an hour. I wasn't just dealing with heartbreak anymore. I was dealing with someone who had rewritten the truth, not just for herself, but for anyone who ever tried to care about her. And somewhere, deep inside, a terrifying question started to form. What else had she lied about? 2 days passed. I didn't reply to her email. I didn't respond to Trent after he followed up with a polite hope that helped. I didn't talk to anyone. I just sat with it, all of it. The truth, the lies, the noise in my head that never stopped buzzing once I opened that cursed email. For the first time in years, I started to question not just her, but myself. How much of my own history had been warped by her silence? Then something happened that snapped me out of my spiral. It was a plain manila envelope. No return address. Just my name in sharp, deliberate handwriting. My real name, not the nickname she used. That alone made my stomach twist. I stood there at my mailbox, staring at it like it might explode. Inside was a letter. A real, handwritten letter. Not an apology, not a confession, but something else entirely. The letter wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to someone named Marla. I froze when I saw Callie's name at the bottom. It was dated 6 weeks after our divorce. I knew I shouldn't have read it, but every part of me screamed that I had to. And the deeper I got, the more disturbed I became. It wasn't a friendly letter. It was a calculated explanation. She told Marla, whoever she was, that I had finally cracked, that she had done what she had to do to escape. The words were laced with phrases like psychological instability and manipulative behaviors. She painted herself as a survivor, someone who had endured years of emotional neglect and subtle cruelty. She never used the word abuse directly, but it lingered in every paragraph like a ghost. I would have thought it was a fabrication if not for one small paragraph tucked in the middle of the letter. It read, "He never raised his voice." That was the most terrifying part. He just looked at me with those tired eyes and made me feel like the villain. And I was. But I couldn't let myself be seen that way, not when I'd spent so long trying to be adored. So I rewrote things. Not for him, for me. My hands were shaking. She admitted it. Buried in a letter she never expected me to read, she admitted everything. She hadn't just lied. She had actively manipulated people into believing I was dangerous. And why? Because it was easier than facing what she'd done. She couldn't live with being the one who broke something good, so she made sure everyone believed I was the one who poisoned it. I sat down on the floor with the letter still in my lap. I don't know how long I stayed there. Maybe an hour. Maybe more. There's something about realizing someone not only destroyed your life, but also engineered the story of your downfall. That leaves you feeling less than human. Eventually, I flipped the envelope over again, looking for any clue about who had sent it. Nothing. No markings. No fingerprints. Just a ghost of a decision made years ago now crawling back into my reality. But as I folded the letter and slid it back into the envelope, I noticed something else. A second slip of paper. A sticky note. She did the same thing to me. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a warning. It was a trail. Someone wanted me to follow it. And I suddenly knew, with absolute certainty, that this wasn't over. I barely slept after finding that sticky note. She did the same thing to me. It looped in my head like a siren. Who was M? Why now? And why send the letter anonymously unless they were scared? I knew one thing for sure. I had to find out who this person was. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed to know just how much of my life had been a story written by someone else. I started digging the next morning. I scoured old social media posts, dug into Callie's old friend groups, went through archived email chains we shared during our marriage. The name Marla from the letter stuck with me, and eventually, I found a trail. She had once worked with Callie at her PR firm. They had taken a trip together, a retreat, I think, back when Callie still pretended I was her everything. I found a tagged photo from 5 years ago. Marla Halston, smiling, arm around Callie. The caption read, PR Queens, Unstoppable. I stared at the picture so long I felt sick. I didn't reach out right away. I rehearsed my message a dozen times. Eventually, I just wrote, "Did you send me something recently? If so, I think we need to talk. She replied within 20 minutes. Meet me. In person. I won't write anything down. We met that night at a cafe 2 towns over. It was pouring. She walked in wearing a hooded raincoat, sunglasses even though it was dark, and sat down like she expected someone to follow her. The first thing she said was, "You're not the first." I didn't speak. I just listened. She told me she and Callie had been best friends once. Close enough to share secrets, vacations, and late-night confessions. But after Callie's divorce, mine, she noticed something strange. She started recycling the same story, Marla said, about how she escaped an emotionally manipulative marriage. She used that exact phrase, over and over. And then she started dating my cousin. That's when Marla's voice cracked. She did to him what she did to you. Only worse. He lost his job, his apartment, his mind, almost. She convinced everyone he was unstable, that he threatened her, that he stalked her. But it was her. She was the one showing up at his place, at his work. When I realized what she was doing, I confronted her. What happened? I asked, though I already knew. She blocked me, spread rumors, said I was jealous, that I'd been in love with you, with her exes, with everyone. She tried to ruin me. Why didn't you come forward sooner? I asked. Marla looked at me like I'd just asked her to light herself on fire. She makes people choose, she said. And she always wins because she's so good at being the victim. But when I saw you at the event last week, the way she unraveled, I knew she hadn't changed. I knew she'd try to pull you back. I exhaled slowly. I felt like I was floating, not in a peaceful way, in the way you float when the ground is yanked out from under you. She sent that letter to a lot of people, Marla continued. It wasn't just for me. She used it to justify what she did. To Evan. To Trent. To you. She built her image on being the one who was survived. And now, she doesn't know who she is without the drama. I sat back, trying to process it all. Callie wasn't just flawed. She was strategic, careful, desperate to stay innocent in every story, even if she had to rewrite the villains. Why now? I asked. Why send the letter to me after all this time? Marla hesitated, then said something that made my skin crawl. Because she's lost control. And when she loses control, she tries to burn everything down. It was almost poetic that the rain hadn't stopped since I met with Marla. It was like the sky knew the past was still leaking into my present, drop by drop. I spent the next few days in silence, trying to process everything. The manipulated truths, the men before me, the stories told in whispers and lies. And just when I thought it couldn't spiral any further, it did. She showed up at my door. No warning. No call. Just a knock around 8:30 p.m. while I was half asleep on the couch. I checked the peephole and saw her, soaked, shaking, hair plastered to her face, mascara smeared like war paint. For a second, I just stared, my hand frozen on the doorknob. Then I opened the door. Lowell, she whispered, please. I didn't move aside. I didn't invite her in. But I didn't shut the door either. I just stood there, waiting. I'm not here to manipulate you, she said, her voice ragged. I lost myself. And when I saw you again, I realized you were the only real thing I ever had. I ruined it. I know. But I needed you to see that I finally see me. The version you were trying to love while I was too blind to appreciate it. For a moment, I felt that familiar ache again. The old version of me. The one who craved her approval, her warmth, her apologies. But I wasn't him anymore. Not after everything. I looked at her and spoke calmly. I don't hate you, Callie. I really don't. But I don't need your closure anymore. I already found mine. Her eyes welled up. She stepped back slowly, like the truth had pushed her off balance. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, emotionally. Like someone who had finally run out of mirrors to lie to. I hope you find peace, I added. But it won't be with me. She nodded. And then, quietly, she turned and walked away. And just like that, the chapter closed. Not with fireworks. Not with rage. But with calm, and distance, and finally, peace. The next morning, I opened the windows and let the light in. I brewed a fresh cup of coffee, put on a playlist I hadn't touched in years, and, for the first time in forever, smiled without pretending. Not because everything was perfect now, but because she no longer had the pen in my story. Thank you for sticking with me through this wild journey. If you've ever been through something similar, or if a moment from this story struck you, maybe when Callie cried in the parking lot, or when the letter arrived, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to follow the channel for more stories like this, right here on Reddit Confessions.